Is there one song on here that definitely couldn't have been left out for you?
Couldn't have been left out?
Because you say you had about 16 recorded, yet even more. So were there a couple here that you kind of put your foot down and this one has to be on?
Yeah, I mean, Tomorrow's My Turn had to be on there because it's named after that. I mean, I'd say, I mean, the obvious ones were the Dolly Parton and the Patsy Cline. You know, those were just amazing. Waterboy, actually, T-Bone and I both felt really strongly about Waterboy, whereas some other folks in the, you know, label and everything, you know, we're kind of like, I don't know, you know, it's going to come out on this record, and I don't know if we need it, and we felt really strongly about it, and I'm glad, you know, we dug in because I think it's an important part of the record.
When you revisited these songs, did it give you a new insight on these songs and the music that was written back then?
Well, it was a visit. Okay. You know, I knew them, but I'd never sung any of them. You know, I mean, other than Waterboy. So it was an exploration and a discovery for all of us, you know, in the studio, which I think is part of the charm of the record. It's not something you know, these arrangements aren't things that I've been like singing for years. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like I was telling the story in the studio and finding my way through the song with everybody else, the rest of the band. So there's a freshness about it, I think, that I would do some things better now, but I think, you know, it's nice to capture it at that time of discovery.
And you say, well, Tomorrow Is My Turn couldn't have been left out, so the title was already there?
Yeah, it was like, we had a list. It wasn't before we had the songs recorded, you know. Once we had the list of songs recorded, then it was like, what's it going to be the title? And that was kind of, it just, you know, that was the winner pretty early on. Mm-hmm.
And well, there's one song on the record that you did write yourself, yes. Angel City. So where did this song come from?
Well, there's a project I did with T-Bone after we did the recording sessions for my record in two chunks. We did most of it in January in LA, and then we did an additional couple of sessions in Nashville in the summer. And in between those two, I did the New Basement tapes with him. And it was an incredible learning experience for me. You know, I wasn't really much of a songwriter when I went in there. I'd written a few songs, and I just learned so much and was so grateful for the experience that the last night I was there, you know, we listened to all the songs we'd written together, and it was just, I was so inspired that I went back to my hotel room and I stayed up all night and I wrote Angel City. And it was really for the other people in the project. And I played it for them, and then T-Bone was like, we should put that on the record. So I said, okay.
Where did the song come from for you? Because you say you were inspired and you learned new things about writing songs. Yeah. So in terms of the story, where did it come from?
That's pretty much it. I had all these, you know, I was kind of my own worst enemy in that project. It was a very difficult project for me because I was so insecure. You know, I was like, why am I here? And, you know, why did I get picked? And I've got to, you know, hold my own. And I just, you know, I had all these things I was pushing through. And so the words are pretty, you know, when I came to Angel City, I mean, you know, it's like I had all of these demons, and with the help of the people that I worked with, I was able to overcome them. And, you know.
Why these demons then? Because you were doing, I mean, you won a Grammy, so what made, where did this
the insecurity Grammy, I mean, it just means that the record that we made, like, you know, enough people on the voting committee liked it to give it a Grammy. You know, I mean, it's an honor, but it doesn't mean that inherently I'm any good. You know what I mean? I think that everybody has to have like, I knew that I could play fiddle tune, but, you know, I'm there with electric guitars and people writing songs with Bob Dylan lyrics, and I'm just like, oh my God, you know? And I had to kind of come to terms with, yeah, I did belong there, and I did contribute just as much as everybody else, and, you know, my songs I'm very proud of, you know? But I had to, you know, I think every artist has this, you know, has a version of this. Some hide it well, but I think we all do, because as an artist you have to sort of expose yourself, and you have to become very vulnerable, and then you start going, well, is that good? Do they like it? You know, am I a good person? You know, it just kind of, you wrap it all up inside yourself, and so I was able to push through that.
Was Angel City then a turning point where that confidence kind of came in?
Yes. Okay. That's definitely, I feel like the start of my new, that and Lost on the River is like definitely the turning point for my songwriting, because everything I've written since then has been, I feel very strong, you know. I have a lot more confidence as a songwriter, definitely, now. And
well, since that moment, well, you mentioned you have been writing since then. So, with what in mind are you writing? Is it for Carolina Chocolate Drops? Is it for something you want to do yourself? Or?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we've put so much energy into what is Rhiannon Giddens, and you know, I definitely am going to do another record. I mean, another Chocolate Drop record is definitely on the horizon, but for now, it's like it makes sense to go ahead. You know, the momentum is here. You know. I know I definitely don't want to do a whole album of originals. I'm so not interested in that. But I would like to contribute a few more to the next record, you know, and it's going to be different. It's not, you know, this one was a particular thing, and it was a sort of a survey of all the different music that's influenced me, and, you know, I don't want to do another one of those. So right now I'm very involved with social justice and commenting. I feel like musicians, and particularly folk musicians, it's part of their responsibility to comment on what's happening now. And I've made lots of comments on what used to be, and I still will, you know. I've written like a set of slave songs, you know, based on slave narratives, for example, that I'm, you know, anxious to put out. But, you know, I think it's the connection is important to make to what's happening now. And so that's kind of consuming me at the moment, because there's a lot of stuff going on in the States. So,
can you give me an example?
Like, for example, you know, there was the massacre at the church in Charleston, and that was just, you know, I wrote a song and made a video of it, like, immediately. Like, it's just, I'm feeling, it's not out yet, but it will be. And I'm just feeling now that I have put in all of this time as an interpreter and as a researcher and a historian. And I feel like that is an important viewpoint to have, you know, and it's an important piece of writing new music, because it has such a you know, it is so rooted to the past. So, I don't know.
Is there also a sense of trying to make people think? And
yes.
Because you mentioned a protest song in the lineage, so is that a part of it?
Yeah, I think so, because I mean that's been folk music for like hundreds of years, is saying things that people don't feel like they can say, you know, they can sing about it, you know, and also the other thing is it's a way to make people think about, you know, for example, I've written a song called Julie, which is based on a slave narrative between a slave and her mistress. When the Union Army is coming and is going to liberate the plantation, she's getting out of there, and they're talking to each other, you know, before she leaves. And I made a song of this, and I sing it, and people just, you know, they don't have to read the book that I got it from. They don't have to, you know, have my library, but they have an emotional connection, and it gives them a little bit more insight into that time. And I just think that's a really important part of music and art. And I really feel like if we can do that, then we should.
And on the other side, and for you, what does it do for you? Does it help you understand certain social issues better?
Yeah, because you have to write it. At least in my opinion, to write a song about something, you have to really internalize it, you know, and you have to know what you're talking about. You should know what you're talking about, you know. And so it's kind of like writing. You know, you read a book, but if you read a book and write a paper, you'll remember it, you know. Or if you read a book and teach it, it's the same thing. If you are reading something and then, you know, you write a song about it and communicate that to somebody else, it stays with you.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.